Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to demonstrate how to change the air filter in my 2001 Dodge Ram 1500. But this procedure should be pretty similar for all of the second generation Rams, so from 94 to up through 2002, as well as probably the Dakotas and Durangos that have the Magnum engine. I'm not as familiar with the Dakota and the Durango, so the air filter housing and hose locations may be a little bit different, but I know that this is pretty standard for the Rams. So anyway, this is a really simple task. You don't really need any special tools to do it, and you can probably save yourself anywhere from 20 to 30 bucks by doing this in your driveway versus paying a shop to do it when you get your oil changed or some routine maintenance. This is probably one of the services that they push, knowing that folks don't want to do it themselves, and they probably charge you twice what the filter actually costs, and then half hour's worth of work to do it. So anyhow, let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we want to do is remove this hose from the passenger side, and then we need to remove the air intake hose like that. This is a stock hose. I just wrapped it in duct insulation. It just sort of slips over this section here. Once you've got that pulled out of the way, then we need to come over to this side, and you can see the ring clamp that holds the air filter housing to the throttle, and there's a 5/16 nut that adjusts that ring or band clamp. We need to loosen that by turning it counterclockwise. So I've got a ratcheting screwdriver with a long extension, 5/16 nut driver. So we're going to slip it on, loosen that band clamp. You don't want to take it all the way off. You just need to loosen it enough that the clamp's no longer hooked on the bottom of the mounting flange on the throttle body. And now we can grasp the air filter housing and wiggle it, and it should lift straight off. There you go. Now you can see your throttle body, and now that the housing's loose, we can undo these 3 clips by flipping them forward, and now we should be able to separate the housing like so to expose the air filter. And just pull the air filter straight out. You can see mine's fairly dirty. So let me get the new filter in place, and we'll put everything back together. Alright, I've got my new filter ready. I'm using a Purolator filter for my truck. The part number is A24372. I think I spent 11 bucks on it. Not bad at all. Alright, so the new filter goes in just like the old filter came out. The pleats go down. It drops down in the bottom part of the housing. You want to make sure that the rubber gasket is flush all the way around. Alright, now we flip the top back on, and if you see on the back edge, there are some tabs here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those need to hook into the corresponding slots on the top part of the housing. Let me see if I can do this with one hand. I'm going to manipulate the bottom half. You can see, hopefully you can see the tabs have engaged in those slots. Now we can pick the whole thing up and flip the clips out of the way. And we just need to pinch together and put the retainer clips back up into place like that. Now we're ready to put it back together. Now this is also a really good time to clean your throttle body if it looks dirty. You can manipulate the butterfly valves with the throttle cable linkage over here like that. You can open them up and see mine aren't too bad, so I'm not going to clean it at this time, but since it takes a few minutes to take this apart, now is a good time to go ahead and give everything a cleaning if you haven't done it in a while. Alright, let me reposition and we'll finish this up. Alright, I've got the housing flipped upside down because I wanted to give a shot of the band clamp on the bottom side. It's got this hooked edge all the way around. That needs to grab the top of the throttle plate. It's got sort of a mounting flange that needs to hook underneath this edge. So if we look at the throttle, that band clamp needs to hook underneath here all the way around, and when you tighten it, it'll cinch everything tight. We also have sort of a rubber grommet here on the bottom of the housing that needs to sit on top of this mounting stud right here on this bracket at the front of the intake manifold. Alright, so we're going to flip this back over, kind of guide the back side of the housing over towards the throttle, and then we need to line up that rubber grommet on that stud. There we go, we got it started. Before you drop it down, make sure that your gasket here on top of the throttle is seated and is not bunched up or kinked or in any way. And now we want to just press down like that. Now I'm going to need two hands, but I'm going to sort of wiggle the band clamp and the air filter housing until I feel like I've gotten, with my finger, I've gotten that bottom edge hooked. And then we're going to take our screwdriver and start tightening the nut in the back, while at the same time keeping some pressure on the top to make sure that it does engage properly. So I'm going to see if I can prop my camera up and give a shot of this. I'll be right back. Alright, I've got my camera propped up here. It's kind of right in my way, but I'm going to see if I can work around it so that I can film this while I'm doing it. Alright, so hopefully you can see back here, there's a notch in the band clamp right there. That needs to align with this little tab that's coming off the side of the air filter housing, which should also be pointing at this connector here, which is for the throttle position sensor. Those should be lined up, which means that the nut back here will be accessible, and it also means that the band clamp is going to be oriented properly to grab and align with everything. So let's see if I can do this. I'm going to keep some pressure on the top of the housing and push down while I'm turning the nut back here. Now you don't want to put a bunch of pressure, horizontal pressure against the nut on the band clamp at first, because it's going to want to rotate the clamp, which we don't want to do. So you want to put light pressure and just twist it gently until it starts to grab. And then once it starts to grab, if you're using a ratcheting screwdriver or socket wrench, you'll be able to use the ratchet function. So I've got it started now. I'm going to keep pressure down on the housing to make sure that that bottom edge of that clamp hooks under the top of the throttle body. You don't have to tighten this thing too much, but you want to have it nice and snug so it doesn't pop off while you're driving around. So I've got it pretty tight. Now you just want to give the housing a nice wiggle, make sure it's not loose. So now all we need to do is reconnect the hoses and we'll be done. Alright, so I'm back over on the passenger side. Just need to move the air intake hose back into place and make sure it snaps on, and then reconnect this hose here to the top of the housing, and we're done. So that's a quick little 10-minute project that you can do in your driveway with hardly any tools, and you can save yourself a few dollars. So I hope you found this video helpful. Thanks for watching.